I think I saw Gabe and I saw Bob for a second, and then he was gone again. And Catherine just said she was having trouble finding the link, so I just sent it to her.
Oh, okay.
Gabe, are you there? Yeah.
I'm here, yep.
So we have Gabe, we have Brian, myself, and we need at least one more.
Well, Bob is just joining. Sorry for the delay.
Okay, Bob, I can,
Putting one online, probably just need another,
I'll wait just 1 or 2 minutes for Catherine. Well, we do have a quorum, so it's 6:05, so why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is going to be a public hearing for the South Thompson, let me say exactly, the Hawken Family Trust, South Thompson Solar LLC. It's going to be built on map 12, lot number 7-1. And that's the location. The meeting, the public hearing has been advertised. The butters were sent written letters, and it's been posted in the town office website and 4 places in around South Thomaston. So it's been advertised. So with that, the purpose of the hearing will be for the public, if they attend, to ask any questions, and I won't really have any allotted speaking time because I don't think that there's very many people tonight. The board will decide whether the applicant has sufficient right, title, interest to appear before the board, and we see by the application that they do. The board, which the individuals attending here are the interested parties, those persons who request to offer testimony, evidence, and participate in oral cross-examination who would be directly adversely affected by the board's decision. Interested parties may request the board to consolidate, join their appearances in part and whole. If the interested parties are substantially similar in such consolidation would expedite the hearing. The code officer shall automatically be made parties to the proceedings. Interested parties will be required to state for the record their name, residence, business, professional affiliation, nature of their interest in the hearing, whether or not they represent another individual, firm, association, organization, partnership, trust, company, corporation, state agency, or other legal entity for the purpose of the hearing. The chairperson will incorporate into the record any correspondence received, filed prior to the meeting, and material shall be made available to the public upon request. A little bit more here. The applicant is given the opportunity to present his or her case without interruption. The board may ask questions of the applicant, and interested parties may ask questions of the applicant through the chairperson. Interested parties are given the opportunity to present their testimony, starting with the proponents, followed by the opponents. The board may call its own witnesses, such as code enforcement officer, planner, and consultants. The applicant may ask questions of interested parties. The board the board witnesses through the chairperson. The parties are given the opportunity to refute, rebut statements made throughout the hearing through the chair. The board may receive comments, questions from observers, interested citizens to express their views, who wish to express their views. The hearing is closed after all parties have been heard. If additional time is needed, the hearing may be continued to a later date. All interested parties shall be notified of the date, time, and place of the
Mic check.
Catherine, that's great. Continuing hearing and reason for the continuance.
Lines
Well,
open.
Seth-
We got, Councilor's gonna be dialing in here shortly. They get, just trying to tie up the other meeting.
Okay,
Understand there, thanks.
okay. Wait a second. Upon such request made prior to during the course of the hearing, the chairman may permit persons participating in any hearing persistent with these bylaws to file written statements with the board for inclusion in the record after the conclusion of the hearing within such time upon such notification of their participants as the chairperson may require. So if you have anything that you want to send in writing afterwards, you're free to do so. With that, I'm open to a public hearing. And I think first I'd like to hear from Ben and Darren on their project, if they wouldn't mind stating what they'd like to do.
Of course. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining tonight. I appreciate it. My name is Ben Axelman, and I am a solar project developer with Nexamp. Nexamp is a solar energy company based out of Boston, and our business is developing, constructing, owning, and operating solar farms. We've been in business for about 12 years at this point, and are one of the larger companies developing projects in the Northeast, as well as elsewhere in the country. Previously, most of the projects that we've built have been in, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, but we have been following the market in Maine for a number of years and are now actively developing projects in the state, and have a number of projects currently under construction, mostly in central Maine as the general area. We came across this property about 1.5 years ago, and it met all of the criteria for a viable solar project, meaning that it is, open piece of property without environmental restrictions preventing solar on the property. It's well hidden from all neighboring abutters and residents, and it has a good connection to CMP's grid. We've been studied by CMP, and they have given us approval to tie this project in at a reasonable cost. So in terms of permitting the project, we have submitted our SLOTA application, our state site law of development application to Maine DEP, and that is currently under review. And then we have applied for this special permit as well with the town of South Thomaston. So this is the first public hearing for this project, and we're happy to walk through the project in more detail. We've hired Woodard and Curran, a civil engineering firm, to prepare the site plans and do the site surveys and help us through development and construction of this project. So our partner Darren Stairs is here as well, who will I'll hand it over to walk through the plans and exactly what it is that we're proposing. I think you're on mute, Darren.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Sorry, battery in this thing wears out pretty quickly. Sorry. Mr. Chair, if I may, I have some slides that I'd like to share. I'll share my screen now.
I think that has to, Anna.
Yep, looks like I need to be enabled to do that.
Just one moment.
So we were before the board back in March, and we presented a lot of this then. I'll go through it again for the benefit of those who might not have. Thank you. For those that might not have been in the March meeting, nothing from our standpoint has really changed with the design since then. But let's see if I can get these up there. So you should be able to see my screen now. So again, as the chair pointed out, this site is on St. George Road. The address is actually 466, tax map 12, lot 71. It's about an 85-acre site, and it's in the rural R1 zone. The proposed project is a passive use for the property, as Ben pointed out. It's a 4 megawatt solar array, ground mounted, so similar to what's shown in that picture on the slide. As Ben mentioned, also we'd be connecting to the CMP grid in St. George Road. And then beyond that, the project's relatively simple. It would be fenced, and I'll show you some plans in a minute that show that. There's a gravel driveway to the site, a couple pieces of equipment internal to the site, inverter and a transformer. And that's basically it. The property, the location of the project is such that we're screened from the roadway and the adjacent properties. Again, I'll show you on the plan that we're about 1,500 feet back from St. George Road. And then when the project's done, we seed the property, the ground beneath the array with this conservation seed mix. Then the project's just maintained for the life of the project a couple times a year. Crews out there would mow once or twice a year, do any invasive plant management, and then basically make sure everything's in working order. The other thing that's important to this project that a lot of folks ask us is what happens at the end of the project, and Ben can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But just know that the DEP requires the developer to have a bond in place for the decommissioning of the project, and so that's an important feature of this development. Ben, can you talk a little bit about the benefits of community solar?
Absolutely. So this solar project, like all ground-mounted solar projects proposed in the state, have a number of benefits to the host communities where they're located. First of all, tax revenue. These projects will be taxed as personal property. How exactly that's done is a little bit up in the air right now, because there's a bill going through the State House to define more clearly how these projects are taxed. But we're anticipating a significant amount of annual tax revenue from this project. Additionally, there's the opportunity for electricity savings, both on the part of the town and for residents. Most of the projects that we are building in the state, and I believe this one will be as well, are community solar projects where we are selling a portion of the solar project to individual households at a roughly 10% discount. So anyone will have the opportunity to subscribe to this or another Nexamp project and realize savings on your electric bill that will begin as soon as the project comes online. We also will sell power in greater quantities to offset municipal electric loads. So we'd be happy to speak with the town about looking into that as well, and giving the town some electricity savings. Additionally, these projects create a number of jobs during the construction. Long term, it's a pretty passive use without a lot of day-to-day activity, but during the construction period, during peak construction, we're looking at typically 100 or so people active on site. And a lot of the work that we do, we sub out to local contractors. So it'll be a pretty significant jobs driver for the construction period of this, which is typically about 3 to 4 months of full construction. And then lastly, these projects, we like to work with the communities that we're in to provide educational benefits from these projects, including working with local school districts to provide field trips to walk out and see the solar facility, putting a kiosk somewhere in the school or town hall to show how much the project is producing, and to let the school districts have access to the data so that they can use that analysis during the school's curricula.
Thanks, Ben. So we've done a number of things over the course of the last year to get the project ready for permitting. And it started with wetland surveys, soil surveys. We did a topographic and boundary survey of the site, worked on the design of the solar panels and the site design itself, the civil design. That's where I came in. And as Ben mentioned, we've applied for a Maine DEP site location of development permit, or SLOD. So there's like 26 categories listed here that we have to address. I believe we've provided you all with a copy of that application. If not, we can. It has a lot of information in it. In it, some of it has been carried over into that local application that we've sent to you as well. But it deals with everything across the board, from the location of the array from a historic standpoint all the way through fisheries and wildlife and solid waste and everything. So in the decommissioning plan you see there at the end that I mentioned. So here's the site designed. St. George Road is on the left in this picture. You can see a couple of large, and I'm going to switch my screen to another. That's a little bit easier for me to zoom in on. So there's a couple large wetland areas here with the stipple wetland A and wetland B near the front of the site, so out towards St. George Road. So as you enter the site from St. George Road, there'll be a gravel driveway. There's an existing sort of remnant logging road there now. If you've been out near the site or by the site, you'll see that road leading in. We're pretty much following that same historic alignment of that road. We'll dress up the road a little bit so it's more traversable. It's a little rough in some spots, put some gravel on it. We're putting a couple new culverts in. We visited the site with the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP last fall, I think, or no, it might have been earlier this year actually, and looked at these wetland and these crossings, and they've helped advise us on what kinds of culverts they want us to put in there to help maintain the flows back and forth to keep those wetlands viable. These little fingers that stick down across the road you see here. So you enter the site, and then it's pretty far back, about 1,500 feet before you get up to the top, what I call the top of the site. It's the a little bit higher elevation. And that's where the equipment will be located. There's, as I mentioned, an inverter and a transformer near the array. And then this is where the project will be fenced. So up until then, there's just this gravel road. So they'll be fenced and gated, and that's to comply with the National Electric Code. It's a wooden wire type farm fence is what we're proposing. It's 7 feet tall, and it's really to provide safety and security around the site. And then you'll see here in the middle of the interior of the site, this is the solar array itself. And again, that driveway will traverse inside for maintenance and access. So a couple other things we'll mention here is the fence will be, the site will be gated and locked, and Ben's company, Nexamp, they always provide the local emergency response teams with, there'll be a Knox box there, so they'll have access to it. And Nexamp does a good job before the site's turned on. Basically, they'll have a walkthrough of the project with the local officials, fire, emergency, police, rescue police, whoever wants to be out there, to familiarize them with the site so they know what they're going to be expecting there. They do a full walkthrough and go over any safety protocols that they want addressed at that time before the site's energized. Other than that, I'll just mention that the site's cleared now. It was logged a year or so ago with a timber permit. So we're not really proposing to impact any of the existing tree lines. There is a small area here near where I'm moving my cursor, near this wetland, outside of the wetland, where this brown shading is. We'll be removing a little bit of trees to get the rest of our panels in, and also to prevent any shading. Obviously, we need to provide a certain amount of sunlight to the panels, so those trees will be removed for shading purposes. The interior of the site will be cleared, will be grubbed and lightly graded. Pretty much we work with the grade that's there. We don't plan on doing any large earthwork activities. We try to minimize that. These panels are mounted on posts, kind of like beefed up fence posts. They're not, they're sunk in the ground. There's no concrete foundations, so just these steel posts and these solar panels on top of them. So we can work with the terrain, minimize the impact there. And then the area outside the fence will be cleared, but we'll leave the stumps and vegetation in place outside, so that kind of maintains the protection from erosion and those sorts of things outside the fence. And then periodically, as I mentioned, we'll go in and just do some maintenance, make sure no trees are, volunteer trees are growing up next to the fence that would shade the panels. Those will be just removed. So I'll maybe just get to the end here, and then we can entertain questions all at once. Let me see if I can get back to the slideshow without.
Wait. Where are we? Right there.
Are you still seeing the slideshow?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. It's hard to tell on my screen the boundaries. So just to finish up here, schedule-wise, obviously we've worked through the design and we're working through the DEP and you folks with permitting. We're here in May now. The schedule was put together a few months ago. Obviously, it's subject to your approval of the permit, but we were hoping to be wrapped up with permitting this summer, say in June or so, and then begin site work soon after that. The site work would carry through to the winter. And then equipment installation after that, and then looking at substantial completion and putting it in operation next year, 2022, about the summertime of 2022. That's it for my presentation. I think I'll stop there and turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. If there's any questions that we can answer, we'd be glad to.
Okay. So can we switch the screen back?
Yes, sir.
The-
If I can
Oh,
find the control, I'll do that.
Okay. Thank you. Very nice. At this time, do we have any interested parties from the public that would like to comment? And we'll start with the proponents first. Anybody from the public, any butters?
Yes, my name's Ken Smith, and I live immediately adjacent to the property.
in the old caulking place.
And so I'm looking to see exactly what you're doing, so I have some understanding of it. I did have a question about noise and how much noise this will generate, and will it be constant?
Sure, I can take that. Basically, once the project is during the construction of the project, there will be construction noise. It's a full construction site for those 3 to 4 months when it's actively under construction. We will be following all state and local ordinances around hours of operation. Not operating on the weekends or not operating on Sundays, and keeping it during daylight hours. After the project is operational, the only source of noise on the project is the inverter, which puts out a low hum, roughly on par with a refrigerator when you're more than a couple feet away from it. That inverter is central to the solar array and roughly about 1,500 feet back from the road, and very far from any residences. So while there will be a hum going on at the project, there will not be an audible noise anywhere off of the property. And that's something that we've had to provide to Maine DEP as part of their review as well, providing noise information on the inverter and other equipment that we're using on the site.
What about radiation? Is there any radiation that comes off of this with the generation of electricity and that kind of thing?
There is not at a level where it is impactful to any humans. These are the same solar panels that people put on their homes, that people have been installing on their homes for the last 30 years. While there is always a certain amount of energy put out by power generating equipment, this is actually lower voltage than the distribution lines going along the street. So when the solar panels are producing electricity, it's at a significantly lower voltage than the lines on the street. We will basically collect that power and then step up the power to distribution voltage at the inverter and transformer pad, and then run it from there back to the road. So there's no additional electromagnetic fields or anything beyond that, which is currently on every street in town. And we'd be happy to provide some information on that if there's a desire. I have a report that the state of Massachusetts commissioned a couple of years ago that does a peer review that looked at peer-reviewed science on solar photovoltaic installations, and determines that there's no appreciable electromagnetic fields or radiation emitted by these projects. Happy to provide that to the board.
Are the presently we're buffered from the site by trees and greenery, that kind of thing. Are you going to touch any of that, or will that stay pretty much the same?
The level of trees on the site right now will stay roughly the same. There are a few areas where we're doing some cutting for shade management, and then the existing logging road that goes back there will be turned into a more permanent gravel access road. So it'll be slightly widened and made more robust. But aside from that, and a few areas internal to the site that are, that will be trimmed, they'll be cut for shade management. There's no additional tree clearing. The existing buffers will remain.
Okay.
Is there any other proponents who'd like to speak?
Hi, this is Steve Hawking. Hi, Irvin. How are you?
Good, Steve.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in. I haven't joined any of these public hearings yet, but we've owned this property, my family and my brother and myself, since 1965. And just so it's clear, I've evaluated this after I was contacted by them to ensure that there'd be no harm to our neighbors, because the reputation of my name and our family name means more than anything else. So anything that's going to go on here to generate the electricity is going to be beneficial to the community and not a destructive thing. So I've had several conversations. I'm a physicist by training, so what I'm saying, I say with the understanding of my knowledge of science. So I think, Mr. Smith, good to see you, good to hear your voice. I think you'll be a benefit. You'll be a beneficiary of this, as well as the community, in regard to the 10% reduction in electricity costs. So I just wanted to toss that out there. I've got another meeting I have to go to, but I just wanted to jump in and say that before I have to go. So thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Any other proponents?
This is Sandra Wallace.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm a South Thomaston resident. I'm generally very much in favor of solar and community solar. I'm really on this hearing tonight for my own education. I wasn't able to come to the earlier meeting. I haven't seen much of the paperwork. So what I'm trying to figure out, is it going to make sense for my husband and me to actually buy into it? I have a couple of questions. One, you've talked about the life of it, but you haven't given any timetable. I mean, how long do you expect this array to be functional? That's one question. And the other is, I know the town is, and the planning board is developing a solar ordinance, which I gather will not apply to this project because it's only going to apply to projects where the application is filed after the annual town meeting. So I wanted to ask whether in the approval of this application, all the bases that would have been covered in the ordinance are covered somehow.
Sure.
I can take that for you. We will be reviewing, the planning board has already reviewed the solar ordinance and the plan. Well, the plan, we don't have to have any. We can take the recommendations of the ordinance committee, or we can not take the recommendations of them. But I do have a short list here that I'll read in a little bit to, if you want to hang in there, and to let you give you an idea of what we'll be looking for on Thursday night. But, or I can go through them now. If
I don't need you to go through them item by item. I just would like reassurance that all of the points that the ordinance would take care of are going to somehow be applied to this project. And
So
the other question that I had was, what is the life of this project?
I'm happy to take the latter there, if you'd like, Irvin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So solar projects, we're expecting this solar project to last between 20 and 40 years. The reason that we give that wide of a range is that solar panels don't really break down. They'll just kind of slowly degrade over time. People that installed solar back in the 80s and 90s, those panels are typically still operating. But all of the equipment is typically warranted for 20 years. So we put that out there as the baseline because we're expecting everything to be under warranty for that time, and the panels to still be largely producing, on about 90% of what they're currently produce, what they would produce in year one, towards the end of the life of the array, or of the first 20 years. The things that are most likely to break on the project are the inverter and transformer, the electrical equipment. So we will typically have a fund set aside for replacement if that were to break down, some in year 25 or something. And at that point, we would, likely replace it and keep the project operating. But we're expecting it to operate for upwards of 30 to 40 years. As for the ordinance, I can't speak to what's in the town's new ordinance. I haven't actually seen that, and we did apply, before that was entertained. But I will say that this project is also under review by Maine DEP, and the amount of information that they are looking for there is very thorough. And we will provide copies of that application to the town if we haven't already. But they look into visual impact and noise and the whole list of about 20 things that Darren went through earlier. So I think it's not up to me to say whether or not this project is in line with the new ordinance, but I think this project will be thoroughly reviewed by the state in addition to the town.
Thank you.
Is there any other proponents who'd like to speak? Is there any opponents that would like to express their opinion? Hearing none, I'd like to recognize the board themselves for any questions or concerns that they have. Planning board. Okay. Other than that, I do have a list of things that we will be looking at for the public to know.
Irv, do you
Go
mind if I say something? I'm sorry, I didn't hit
Oh,
my
no,
mute.
go ahead. Sure, Ryan.
Yeah, I guess to one part, I want to reassure Sandra that the board, I can't say what the town will vote in. on the solar ordinance, but I can tell you that the board has been represented on the ordinance review committee. Gabe very gratefully did that for us. So I feel like we've been informed of the forthcoming, solar ordinance, for quite some time now. Secondly, we've gone through a review process. We actually had a workshop last week where they took a couple of our comments. They were minor, and I'm sure that they'll be addressed, and they were administrative in nature. But we've had that process has been inclusive of us, and we've been informed. So I can at least tell you that the whole board with confidence is very well aware of that ordinance. And for my own, what I can say is I don't think in good faith I could accept, I'm certainly cognizant of it and thinking of it in the sense of what, how I view the application. I'll say that. And then just for the general public, Darren and Ben did a great job giving the overview, but there is I think it's like an 85-page application that we've been provided. So if you have additional questions, I believe that's on file at the town office. That was all I wanted to say, Irv.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Any other board members want to make a comment or anything? The type of things that I had sent this out to the board earlier, and it kind of paraphrases the town ordinance that they're proposing. And I'll just kind of look at the thing. We want to confirm the projects in R1 district. A lot of these things have already been covered. So if I'm a little redundant, please bear with me. Projects going to be considered for commercial use versus industrial use. The solar panel structures, we'd like to keep them. We looked at 25 feet in height. I think they'll be below that. So minimum setbacks from property lines. The new ordinance is asking for 50 feet. I think we should have that on the side. The solar panels must be buffered from the roads, residents, by plantings, berms, or other natural topographical features. I think we went over that with the guys on this. Project's going to be protected by a perimeter fence. Signs affixed to the fence identify the owner, emergency contact information. That's all in there. These are just proposals. Emergency service electrical schematic site plan be given to the South Thompson Fire Chief upon request. Shutdown system clearly marked. So the fire chief goes in there, knows where to de-energize it if you needed to. Solar facility maintained in good condition, including painting, structural repairs, vegetation control, and security measures. Solar operator will maintain the access road separate with the town of South Thompson Fire Chief. Solar panels will be built and maintained in compliance with federal, state, local laws, regulations, ordinances. Decommissioning. The physical removal installation should be carried out no later than 180 days after the discontinued operation. The code enforcement shall be notified by certified mail the proposed date of discontinued operations and plans for removal. So that is something that was been addressed too. The removal must consist of all solar energy systems, structures, equipment, security barriers, transmission lines from the site. Disposal of hazardous waste in accordance with local, state, federal waste disposal regulation, and stabilizing of vegetation on the site necessary to minimize erosion. The code officer may allow the operator to leave the landscaping and below ground foundations to minimize erosion if you have any concrete in the ground. Abandoned solar projects, abandonment will be made at the discretion or shall be made by the code enforcement officer when the solar project fails to generate electricity for more than 1 year without the operator first obtaining a written consent from the code enforcement officer. So if you're going to shut it down for more than a year, you got to let the code run. These are the things that are in the ordinance. The only other thing that I haven't addressed here was the decommissioning bond, I guess, with the state. What percentage is that if you estimated with them? Because it's probably come up in 30. What they do, the new ordinance is asking for estimated cost of a bond of 150% of the decommissioning.
Sure. The state requires that we provide a I believe it's just that we provide a bond in the amount of the estimated decommissioning, and then it will increase over time. So
Okay.
we will be providing a decommissioning estimate to the state, and then getting a bond issued for that amount. So
Okay.
that may be a difference between this and the local ordinance, if the local ordinance is looking for.
The local ordinance will only require, if it's passed, that you get one bond. You don't have to get a bond with the town. You just get one bond
Okay.
with the state. Okay?
Great. Yep.
Those are the type of things that we'll be looking for on Thursday night. I just want to read them to you real quick to see if there's any conflicts with the local ordinance. And I have the ordinances available at the town office if you'd like to view it before Thursday. But what I did was I basically just made a short list for tonight's hearing to make it quicker, what the ordinance committee was looking for. Okay, is there any other discussion on this public hearing tonight? Okay, we'll go ahead and can I get a motion from one of the planning board members or in a second to close the public hearing? Any volunteers on the planning board?
Motion to adjourn, or
Okay, Ryan, motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Robert seconds it. Call for a vote. Irv, aye. Ryan,
aye.
Gabe,
Aye.
Robert,
Aye.
and Catherine, if you're there.
Aye.
Aye, okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, everybody, and we will be meeting 6 o'clock Thursday night. Your project will be up for performance standard review and possible approval vote. And the public does have a comment section at the planning board meeting on Thursday night as well. So I thank everybody, and I don't have any more.
Great. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks so much.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Night
Okay,
all.
good night.
Good night.
Right.